Hi, everybody. This is Chris Domenico at the Philly Film Brothers podcast, here along with...
I am one of the random Terminators that Skynet apparently sent back in time, but told no one about.
Those are the worst sunglasses ever. Those aren't even sunglasses.
Yes, they are.
Are they from the movies?
They allowed me to see the film in 3 dimensions.
You're supposed to return those.
Return what? I'm Dave Domenico.
And today we're going to be talking about Terminator
Dark Fate. That's gonna...
We're going to break something.
We're going to break the microphone is what we're going to do.
I'm not sure where to put this story. Maybe I'll save it.
You're not sure where to begin?
Where to begin?
How about we start this review, this video, by a random scene that totally throws our last video totally out the window. One that everyone loved. Like Terminator Dark Fate, let's open up with beloved characters that we went through Terminator 2 with, and then just randomly kill one off because we don't know what to do with him.
Spoiler alert! There will be spoilers in this video.
It's the opening scene.
Still, my background with this, I really wanted to talk about this film because I really wanted to like it a lot. I really did. I went in with very, very high hopes.
Higher than mine.
Yeah, I think definitely higher than yours.
I've been burned by this franchise too many times.
As have I to some extent. I believe that I was the one that convinced Linda Hamilton to do this movie. So the backstory is,
I let him think this is true.
It's not necessarily false, but what happened was about 9 or 10 years ago, I ran into Linda Hamilton at Wizard World Philly, and I went up, shook her hand, and I said, I'm a really big fan, and I mean, I love Linda Hamilton. I think she's...
I mean, who doesn't?
Linda Hamilton is one of the greatest action heroes of all time, has played one of the greatest action heroes of all time, of course, Sarah Connor. Around the time that I met her, they were doing the Sarah Connor Chronicles on Fox. It was a show. I didn't bother to see it, and I said to her, look, I know they have this new show out, but to me, you were the one and only Sarah Connor. You're the only one. And she was so sweet, and she's like, thank you so much. But, if they put me in the movies, they'd have to spend all their budget removing my wrinkles. And
which they actually did for the opening scene.
For the opening scene, they did,
right? She was right.
Yeah, and I...
Along with Arnold's.
So I kind of got a preview of that in 2009 or 2010. But the point is that she's the one and only Sarah Connor, and...
doesn't matter how many queens from Game of Thrones you try to recast her with, be it Daenerys or Cersei. Mm-hmm. There's only one Sarah Connor.
So, it was a delight for me to see Linda Hamilton back on screen, just being awesome.
Now, didn't you tell her she should return to the franchise?
I think
and you think
I implied it.
And you think that in all these years, you were the only person to ever say to her, hey, Linda Hamilton, you should really go back to the Terminator franchise.
I just think
no one else in the world ever thought to tell her that.
I just think it meant a lot coming from me. But
from this random guy.
Either way.
What, 9 years ago?
She could not have been kinder, and that answer just made me just appreciate her. She's one of the celebrities that she just comes across as very authentic, very real. Not fake, and it was just great to see her back in this role that defined her.
Admittedly, we'll get to it. I have some pretty major issues with it. She is one of the better things in it. She is one of the best parts of it. I think that she eased back into that character.
Yeah.
With the not just like how badass she is, but how traumatized and disturbed she is.
Right, yeah.
And kind of towing that line.
Yeah, and I didn't necessarily agree with everything they did with the character, but I think that her performance was just top-notch, and it was great to see her. And I think especially, again, with Arnold, I like the interaction with them, and...
some of the choices were a little odd.
Yes.
Played for laughs, I thought that was kind of weird.
So we're going to start putting our cell phones in ship bags, because...
Yeah, I'm just checking a text.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it kind of made total sense that, of course, Sarah Connor would be so paranoid that she puts her cell phone in chips, because you could picture like somebody's mom doing that because
she saw it on
saw
Facebook.
Right?
Edward Snowden told me if you put it in the microwave, that blocks the signals. Obviously, don't turn it on.
Oh, Edward Snowden told you that.
Okay, it was in the movie Snowden.
Oh, okay.
With what's his name?
Edward Snowden.
Not Edward Snowden. James Gordon-Levitt.
Okay.
I don't. Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Right.
Tommy. I don't know why I drew a blank on
Robin. Tommy from Third Rock from the Sun. Yeah, so it was, regardless of anything else I have to say about this movie, I really just enjoyed seeing Linda Hamilton back in action, and I did feel that this movie was very empowering for women. I would say even more so than Captain Marvel was.
Well, the thing, and now granted, we're saying this as two
I understand,
white men,
half white,
half Mexican, but raised in Delaware County, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But no, I get what you're saying, that with Captain Marvel, it felt very forced.
Yes.
It almost felt like, what was that season of South Park where they were trying to comment on Ghostbusters? And they kept saying, "Girls are funny. Get over it."
Yeah, Cartman. Yeah,
it felt like it was forced. This felt natural, kind of more like Wonder Woman, where if you want to make an empowering film, it's better not to try to shoehorn the message down the audience. Look, just make an awesome movie with a strong female character.
Yeah.
And that's what this did. I mean, Grace was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I liked that for once it was, for the first time since the original, it wasn't another Terminator. So she was human. We didn't have to go through all the motions of, oh, let's teach them how to be human. She was a human. She had emotions. She had feelings,
Now, we're going to get into, I did want to say the things I liked first, but we will get into some of the flaws. But we did see this before in Salvation.
We did.
So, and they did, if you look in this movie, clearly they did borrow a couple things from the sequels that they wanted us to ignore.
It's like they wanted to ignore the continuity, but I think it was more a case of, they said, look, the franchise is failing.
Yeah.
But there are some good elements, like a human, being crossed with, being, experimented on as, to become part machine. Be it, the same thing happened in Genesis.
Right. Yeah.
Or the whole idea of Arnold playing a Terminator who gets older and learns to love.
Right.
Learns to have a family.
And I think those ideas in those previous Terminator films, those ideas weren't bad. I thought that they were
films they were in were bad for many other reasons, but
I think it's debatable, because now we're dealing with 6 movies now, which is, it's
Don't you mean 3 movies?
Right.
We're supposed to ignore them all and ignore the TV show.
Right, apparently.
Did anyone actually watch that? I'm legitimately curious. Comment if you actually watched that show, just so I know someone did.
I was angry that they did not put Linda Hamilton in that show, and that's why I went up to Linda Hamilton and told her that.
And
I never bothered to see it.
And I was angry that they killed off John Connor in the opening scene.
All right. Well, let's get into this.
That very divisive opening scene.
The opening scene, I gotta tell you, so I read mixed reviews online. I should say I didn't. A lot of times, if I'm trying not to spoil myself too much with what happens, I will maybe glance at Rotten Tomatoes and look at maybe like some of the quotes and kind of get an idea about the movie before I see it, because I generally will not read a full review before I see a movie if I know it's something I'm going to see.
I don't even do that. But then again, I usually tend to see it opening night, and I look at nothing. I want to go in as blind and fresh as possible.
I try to, but with this one, I was really, really, really hoping it was gonna be really good. I knew it was probably not gonna be better than T2, but I wanted it to be close to T2.
Why is it that you wanted it to be? It seems like you had a much greater desire for it to be good than I did.
I think because of everything the series has gone through, maybe I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it as a fan of Terminator, but I'm also looking at it, I think, as a filmmaker. I want it to go well for them. I think that movie theaters are dying. I think we're losing kind of the art of going to the cinema, and it really bummed me out that this really did not make. It bombed financially in the box office.
Yeah,
and I don't think it deserved that. I did not think that.
I definitely think it is financially, it's suffering for the sins of Salvation and more so Genesis.
Yeah.
I think that's playing a huge role. But I'm coming from a point of view that I don't think they should have continued after T2. If they all flop after that, take the hint, stop making these movies.
Well, here's the thing. I agree with you actually with that now, and it took this long for me
you're like,
to agree with you.
It's like you were in a bad relationship with the Terminator franchise for years, and I kept telling you, be done with it. Yeah. Be done with it. You keep saying, maybe it'll get better. Then comes Genesis. Maybe it'll get better.
Yeah, maybe I'm the eternal optimist, and I just thought, maybe we'll get... And I'm not saying it didn't get better. It did.
It certainly... I'll agree it's the best one since Judgment Day, but again, that's not saying a whole lot.
See? I don't know if I would say that.
Really? Which one's better?
I'm not sure. Probably... not Genesis, and not... Genesis or Terminator 3. Maybe Salvation, just because it was different.
See, I am one of the few people who will defend Salvation.
Yeah.
And Salvation, if I go Dark Fate, Salvation's next. But I think as an overall film, in terms of writing, directing, action scenes, Dark Fate is an overall better put together piece of cinema than Salvation.
I would agree with that. Well,
but that's what happens when you hire a guy named McG to direct.
Let's start from the beginning, because I have a lot I want to unpack with this. So, the opening scene where they show the clip from T2, Sarah Connor being interviewed by what the heck was his name,
Dr. Earl something.
Dr. Earl, I think that was his real name.
Earl Bowden was his real name.
Right. Whatever his name was, when they're it's a classic scene. It's one of the most memorable, unsettling scenes in T2. And I'm thinking, because I read there were mixed reviews, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go with hope. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh yeah, it was just getting me really excited from T2.
Is it weird that scene always made me wonder where I could purchase 2,000 sunblock?
Yeah,
is that available somewhere?
It's so well, because it's such a cheesy line, but Linda just delivers it so well.
She believes every word of it.
It's just a really it's really her performance that just makes that scene so unsettling. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a direct continuation from T2. I can't wait,
then they open and I got to give them credit.
Yeah,
absolute move over Marvel. That was the best de-aging CGI I have ever seen.
Yeah.
That scene that opened, I think it was supposed to be 1998, somewhere in
so it's... Now, T2, I believe, took place in 95 or 96.
Yeah.
Even though it came out in 91. But yeah, it's 98, because I think that was the original Judgment Day.
Judgment Day was supposed to be 97.
Maybe a year after. So they're trying to show, okay...
That they stopped it. They prevented it. And for a second, if you had told me that was a deleted scene shot back in early, 1991, I would have believed you.
Well, and I'm looking at it.
That good.
I'm looking at it. I'm like, because I've seen the extended Terminator 2, and I'm like, wait, was that in it? Is that
was that an alternate ending or something?
Yeah, is that something that because you do a double take, and oh my gosh, that's because I'm like, wait, is it a younger actress playing? No, it's Linda Hamilton.
They spent all the money on the just
well,
like she said.
I know.
She told you about
She
that
did tell-
over 10 years
They
ago.
spent all the money. Oh yeah. I really hope I run into her at a con again because I want to tell her that and
And
see
I'm
what she
sure she'll
thinks.
remember you.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, you
From,
told
like,
me that.
a decade ago. But anyway, but yeah, I saw that, and you do a double take, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's her, and then you see obviously clearly someone looks like Edward Furlong, and then I think he looked a little less realistic, and you forgive that, like that is understandable
Because it's a kid.
It's a kid. Well, and I read what they did was they had body doubles for all three of those characters.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually had Linda Hamilton, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and actually had Edward Furlong come in the next day, and they graphed their faces to...
They actually brought in Edward Furlong.
They actually brought in Edward Furlong.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, I saw him at...
oh, you did?
That con I just went to. Like I didn't talk to him, but
he was there.
I was there, and one of the guys that I was in a line with, he said, "Oh yeah, I talked to Edward Furlong." He said he's in the movie just briefly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was some of the best special effects I've seen. Like,
followed by one of the worst moments in the entire franchise, and I'm counting Genesis in that.
Okay.
Because here's why it's so offensive.
Okay.
Terminator 2 is arguably the second greatest action movie ever made.
What was the first greatest action movie?
Heat.
Okay.
Third is Die Hard.
Okay. I've never seen Heat.
It's brilliant.
So
look it up.
I will. But anyway, so go on.
But anyway, so we watch them go through that journey. We watch them struggle and fight and suffer so much just for it to be thrown away like that. It felt like it felt like such a cheap shot. Like spoiler alert for the Alien series, like the opening of Alien 3, where Ripley had saved the little girl just to say, oh, she died in transit. Like Poochie on The Simpsons. Oh, he died on,
Yeah.
It felt like such, like John Connor's fate was such an afterthought. And here's the thing is, I get why they did it.
Why do you think they did it?
Because if you look back at, and again, this is how studios think, they've looked back at the last few movies and they thought, you know what? John Connor doesn't work.
Yeah.
Adult John Connor doesn't work.
Sure.
We tried with Nick Stahl.
Yeah.
He was okay.
Yeah.
Kind of scrawny. We tried with Christian Bale. He shouted at too many crew members.
Like this in the background. What the is it with you?
We tried again with Jason Clarke, but the movie was so bad that even a good actor like him couldn't save it.
Yeah.
So I think they probably felt like John Connor, the character, was a lost cause, and that if they truly were going to take the series in a new direction, if they truly were going to Force Awakens this,
right,
they needed to kill him off in the opening scene. Now, I'm okay with you wanting to somehow move him aside.
Yeah, but you just didn't like that they killed him.
But just the way they did it, the fact that it was the opening scene, and the fact that apparently Skynet randomly sent other Terminators. So, first of all, that just completely nullifies the ending of Judgment Day, where the good Terminator, melted. Clearly, they still needed him.
Yeah. I disagree. And I didn't have an issue with them killing him because it got me, like, in the beginning, because you're seeing it's like watching a scene from Terminator 2 you didn't see. And you're watching, you have these beloved characters that you love in that film, and you just see, the beloved father figure of John Connor in that movie just take him, even though it wasn't him, obviously, but just have him. I mean, can you imagine what John Connor is thinking as he sees? It was a very emotional ending to T2. And
John Connor deserved better as a character.
I think that it represented Sarah's worst fear, and I think it was enough to make her into the character that she was.
However, she already was that character.
But everything was fine, right? Everything, she was just kind of chill. She's on the beach.
And then the whole thing about, we'll get to it later, but the whole thing about her coming to terms with the Terminator, We saw that already in Judgment Day.
I agree with that. I agree with it. So I thought the execution, no pun intended, but the
Hashtag too soon.
I thought that
even though it's supposed to be 1998,
I thought that the death of John Connor, I didn't have as much of an issue with that as how it affected Sarah later, because like there are moments that I think it's really powerful, like when she comes face to face with the Terminator again and she wants to kill him. And one of the scenes I loved in this movie was when she's sitting out in the forest and she's talking to Danny and she's like, I never even took a picture of him because I thought that they would find him that way. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a powerful moment.
It was. And again, I'm okay with him being dead. I just didn't like how it was the opening, and I didn't like how it felt like a cheap shot. It didn't feel
I feel like
earned.
You had to do that to move on to the next, and it leaves a lot of mystery, like who was this Terminator, and I didn't have an issue with, it kind of makes sense that Skynet would have sent multiple sleeper ones. That kind of makes sense.
Well, then the Resistance was really not doing their job.
I guess not.
The only thing that would have made that scene, less offensive to me would be if, like, that happens and then some protector runs out like, I'm here to say, oh no, I'm too late. Oh, okay.
Talk to the hand.
This is awkward.
Yeah. So I didn't have a whole lot of issue with that opening scene. It was very emotionally rattling to me, and I thought, okay, all right, I'll buy this. I'm in. What the heck's gonna happen now? And that's
whoa.
And see, that was,
and it showed you.
And my issue is that that's the only thing that surprised me in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, from there on out, let's talk about the new leader of the Resistance.
Right. So you have Danny.
We talked about how this movie, has very, strong, empowering female characters. Why is it that the one who ends up being the leader of the Resistance is the least interesting and compelling of the three?
I didn't think she was the least interesting. I thought that they built her up fairly well.
I thought
you met her family, you saw where she worked, and you do really feel for Danny when she's telling Grace, like, I have to go home. I have to tell my father that my brother died, and he doesn't know, and then your father's dead too.
No, I get that, and I feel like more so in the second act they spent too much time on Grace and Sarah bickering just to create conflict, even though they should have realized they were on the same mission.
Yeah, but
and Danny was kind of an afterthought.
But I think sometimes you're right. But I do think Sarah's paranoid enough that made sense that she would not trust something that was part robot.
Then why does Grace not like Sarah? Why does she know, oh, this is Sarah Connor, the badass Terminator killer?
Because she has no idea who Sarah Connor is.
But she saw her show up on that bridge.
Yeah, but still, I mean,
and wouldn't she think, oh, I crash sometimes. Wouldn't it be good to have someone else watching Danny's back?
I did think with her crashing, that was not really well explained at all, and I think
makes her a really bad protector.
I know, and I get it felt when they
oh no, here comes the Rev 9. Just wait, give me like 5 minutes. All right.
It's like, I need a charger,
They sell portable ones.
They sell portable chargers, but I felt like with Grace, it's like they had to get her out of the way sometimes because she was too powerful. So it did feel kind of just like a plot device. I did love that for the first time, this wasn't in LA. Like, it started in Mexico.
Yeah,
It started in Mexico. It's essentially a remake of the original Terminator in some ways, where you have sort of this ordinary person getting caught up in all this stuff, being targeted for assassination because she's going to affect something in the future. So it's a remake. It's really a remake of the first two Terminators, and I did like how they developed her, and they made it. They changed the setting.
Well, I think it made sense that like Sarah said, the second she sets foot on U.S. soil, red flags go up everywhere. It would make sense that she would be hiding out.
Oh, for Sarah being in Mexico as well. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Remember they're like, even, oh, you're famous. You're gonna get to sell all to your, I'm sure she's probably on like the FBI's 10 most wanted list.
Right, and I like that they played that up. Like, that was kind of fun. But I think my issue with this movie, the biggest issue with the movie, and there was a lot I liked about it. I really liked Arnold. I liked how they showed how they almost give you an insight into what it would have been like if the Terminator from T2 had stayed around. Like, what was his full potential?
See, I thought what was more interesting than that was the idea that, because he started out as, a bad Terminator.
I was confused by that.
But the idea that once his mission is complete, what does he do?
Yeah.
I thought that was the most interesting
That was
aspect.
a very interesting idea.
Because it plays into the whole, fate and free will, very central themes going back even to the original Terminator. Mm-hmm. And it forced us to kind of explore those themes through the lens of a machine. And, machines are designed for a purpose. Even today, we talk about, AI is dangerous. But, even, most, scientists and engineers will tell you, well, machines are really only going to do what you programmed them to do.
Yeah.
So what happens when that's completed?
There were moments in this with Arnold's character that I feel like they're trying to be like T2, and they're trying to kind of sort of mine that same emotional well, but I feel like it just doesn't quite get there. I think it's...
Well, no. I did like the subtle point with the dog, though. I like that they didn't specifically point that out, but what that means.
Yeah.
That he had become so human that the dog didn't recognize him as a Terminator.
You know what's funny? I didn't even think of that.
That's what I mean. It was subtle. And
but now that you mention it, I'm like, you're right.
Just in a sea of big budget Hollywood movies that don't know anything about subtlety, it was a nice touch to see that. That was for the fans who noticed.
And Linda gets in some good lines like, "Oh, she didn't notice you're 400 pounds," And there's moments there that I like. I felt like it didn't quite go far enough.
Like it would have come up.
Yeah.
Even if he's like, our relationship is not physical.
Yeah.
It would have. He never goes to the bathroom.
Right. He never. Although,
or did I would love to see like a sitcom of just him in everyday life. Okay, honey, I am going to the bathroom now, and him just sitting there like, I need to wait here for a few minutes so she thinks I'm busy.
Yeah.
I would watch that.
Yeah.
And it'd be way more entertaining than Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Yeah, that would be a great show. Arnold in anything, like he gets.
Yeah.
Look, there's no way he can't play that character for laughs now. Like, there's just no.
No, he's.
And there's kind of a bummer for that, in that I think the issue with this movie is that, T1 and T2 are genuinely scary. They're genuinely scary, and I did not feel that this one was.
It doesn't feel
scary
at all horror. I mean, the original Terminator is one of the best 80s slasher movies ever made.
Oh, yeah.
He's like Jason, but truly unstoppable.
But they never really found a way to make the villains after T2, after Robert Patrick.
Because how could you top him? Like this guy, the Rev 9, he was. I'll admit the way he could like separate his liquid metal from his skeleton. That was kind of cool. That was different.
Yeah.
Because after the T-1000, they could never figure out how to make a Terminator cooler than him.
Yeah.
So here's the TX. It's like the T-1000, but it can't break its whole body down liquid metal. Well, how is that better?
But she could reprogram things. I thought TX was pretty cool. Arnold as the original villain, and Robert Patrick. First of all, how are you going to top Arnold? They topped him with Robert Patrick.
Because he had like that weird serial killer face.
Yeah, and I just like the gentleman that was the villain in this. I don't know what his name was. What was the Rev 9? Rev 9.
Gabriel Luna.
I just
the first Mexican Terminator. I'd like to point out, and that's good for us.
That's good for us. Yeah. I just wasn't really frightened by him, and I think watching this movie, I think, reminded me that there's really nobody is putting out any new ideas. Because, yeah, I like.
Why did it take this movie for you to realize that?
Because I had to.
I've known this for years.
Because
I think that's, you know what? I think you probably liked the movie better than me, but you were more disappointed in it than
I think
if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it does.
Because I wasn't expecting, because Did you see Genesis?
Well, they were bringing Linda Hamilton back, and they brought James Cameron back, and I thought, okay,
As a producer, he's
but-
too busy making
But he
10
wrote-
Avatar sequels that
but
have
he
yet
wrote
to be released.
He wrote the story. In the writing is what I had issue with.
Yeah, he also wrote Avatar. Hasn't been quite himself lately.
That was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I know. When are we getting those sequels, by the way?
I don't know. So my issue with it is I get the passing of the torch, I like it, but even I think if I were to watch The Force Awakens again, I probably would like it less because we're in an era now where all they're doing is just simply they're remaking the movies, but they're just calling them sequels.
Yeah.
That's all that they're doing.
The soft reboot.
The soft reboot, yeah.
Which I told you about 4 years ago when Force Awakens did. I said that exactly, and you're like, "Oh no, it's cool. It's like a new generation."
You didn't complain about that.
Yes, I did.
You didn't complain about
yes,
that.
Yes, I did.
Not that much. Not to me.
Oh, well, I complained to other people.
Maybe you complained to other people.
I complain a lot to a lot of people. How can I keep track of who I say what to?
And there was part of me, when I saw Force Awakens, I did kind of feel like, oh, this is the same thing again. But then I'm like...
They're blowing it up again. Oh, they destroyed a planet again.
But here's the thing, is that audiences really don't know what they want. Because if you look at look at the Star Wars series first. You have... the original trilogy, and then you have the prequel trilogy, which is very different, and people complain about that for good reason.
They had a lot of legitimate,
and so, but then and maybe it's not saying that the complaints weren't legitimate. Maybe they were just addressed in the wrong way. And so the response to that was,
let's just go back to doing the same thing.
Let's do. Oh well, it's not the rebellion anymore. It's the resistance, but it's the same idea because people like when there's a rebellion thing. It's not the Empire anymore. It's the First Order, but it's the Empire.
That's because... Are you just now figuring out that the general public are foolish?
Well, it's funny. I just keep thinking back to that season of South Park with the member berries.
Yeah.
And hey, remember Chewbacca? Remember Terminator?
It's like, I tell you, you see the state of movie-going audiences, and it's like, I can totally understand why Skynet decided our fate in a microsecond. I totally get it.
That's what did it, huh?
That's what did it.
Yeah.
It looked at Star Wars message boards for like less than a second and decided.
There's a line in that South Park season, I believe it's season 20, when they're warning about the member berries, and I think it's Randy is like, we have to accept the fact that Force Awakens was not a good movie, and it was more akin to a Happy Days reunion. The same thing kind of happened with Terminator, whereas they, Terminator 3 and 4, they tried to do something a little different. T3 is a little close to T2, but the ending is very unique. All right?
And that's what I mean. The T3, actually, it's not a good movie, but that ending is one of those poignant things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It at least has that going for it. And like I said, I'll defend Salvation because at least it failed, but it tried to do something different.
And if you look at the first 4 Terminator movies, they do kind of tell one story.
Mm-hmm. It's one... I mean, that was the continuity until Genesis threw everything out the window, and then Dark Fate threw everything out the window.
Salvation was sort of ignoring things, but they still had the picture of Sarah Connor. Like, it was still in the continuity.
No, I will argue that it followed T3 because it had Catherine Brewster.
Yeah.
They recast both of them, but those were the same characters.
True, yeah. So it did, but they didn't really pay that much attention to T3.
But it
because it didn't do that well. But anyway, the point is, so and with Genesis, I think what happened was, like, with Genesis, they were trying to go the Star Trek route. They tried to J.J. Abrams this. Is basically what they did.
Which, you can't catch lightning twice. It worked for Star Trek. It's never going to work again.
Yeah, how did it work with Star Trek? Because that one actually worked.
You know why it worked?
Why do you think it worked?
They absolutely nailed the casting.
Yeah.
That was the key. Was that you believed each one of them was that,
But I didn't...
That, and it was secretly a Star Wars movie.
I guess. Yeah, but I didn't have an issue with the casting with this at all, other than I think the villain could have been scarier. But I thought that the main characters were.
I had
were
some
great.
issues with the casting of Genesis.
Well, yeah.
As much as I love Amelia Clarke was a great Daenerys,
but she's not Sarah Connor.
but she's not Sarah. Well, except for the.
But yeah. Okay, so I see what you're saying. So when you try to recast someone,
And I'm
make it believable.
I'm sorry, but like this Raven right here has more charisma than Jai Courtney. And back in 2015, Hollywood was still trying to make him happen. It wasn't until Suicide Squad they just gave up completely.
What are you gonna do? So they tried the Star Trek method with Genesis. Or that didn't work. So we're gonna try the Force Awakens model.
Yeah.
Which I totally get, but and I think really what it comes down to, and I know you're gonna just say I told you so, but the Terminator story does not need to be extended. I agree with you. Finally.
I have been saying this since 2003.
Yeah. But I mean
I can't believe it's taken 16 years for you to finally see with me eye to eye.
You-
Because I said it when Rise of the Machines came out.
you could argue that, there's more to tell in the Star Wars universe. It's to some extent, but maybe not. I mean, it hasn't been doing so well.
Judgment Day it ends with that perfect. You didn't even know for sure they stopped it, but it's the idea that, well, there's hope.
Right.
They leave it just open enough that
And maybe
you're satisfied, and you don't,
and maybe that's the idea that it's not a very complex story. I think it at the time it came out, it was unique. Like it was like no one ever heard of that before. But I think now, just having them redo Terminators, a protector from the future is trying to stop a machine. Like, it's just been done so many times that, like, to me, it kind of lost the thrill. Whereas I did not care as much
So
this time.
that all begs the question, and take into consideration the financial failure. I mean, I know it's not officially been called a flop. I know it underperformed. It'll still take, some time before they officially declare it that it lost $100 million. Is the franchise dead? Is it terminated?
I think it is. And it's a shame. Like not everything has to be a franchise. That's the thing. And if you look back to the Future, there's a reason why the creators of Back to the Future do not ever want to have it have a sequel or a reboot. I think because of this, because I think it does.
They see what happens.
And
and I tell you, I have mad respect for Galen Zemeckis for doing that.
Yeah,
because Universal would be all over that.
Oh, and they would make so much money off of that. They really would. But
look what they did to Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Now, I think Jurassic Park made it work better.
No, it didn't.
I think it did.
No, it didn't.
Now,
did we watch the same movies?
We're gonna see if they pull it off.
They're not gonna.
I felt that Jurassic World was different enough from Jurassic Park.
No.
Than
it was different in the fact that the dinosaurs looked less real.
Well, that's true. How about the special effects, man? That always bums me out. Like. And it's
still looked better in Judgment Day with the T-1000 and the practical effects.
I think they need to focus on what they're really good at. They're really good at doing the de-aging thing. That is impressive. That to me, that is movie magic right there. And it would be interesting to see them do more of that. I don't know. And I was really just hoping that they had a unique idea for this one, because I thought, well, maybe it's not going to be the same because James Cameron is back. Maybe it's going to be something different. And again, there are a handful of elements I really like in this. Like, Linda Hamilton and Arnold's character. I like the new female leads and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, by no means am I saying it's not an overall bad movie.
No.
It's an okay movie.
Okay. Well, what's funny? I don't know if you saw this. I watched Linda Hamilton's interview on Jimmy Kimmel.
I did not see that.
I just watched it last night because
How was it?
Well, it was good, and they were talking about, oh yeah, the first time he met Arnold, and it's really interesting. And Jimmy asked Linda, like, well, how was the movie? Because they had canceled the screening, I think, due to the fires. They canceled the premiere.
Oh.
So she said, yeah, but we watched it. They arranged the screening for family and friends. And Jimmy Kimmel was like, well, how was it? And Linda, like, without missing a beat, Linda Hamilton's like, it's okay.
All right, I just gained more respect.
I
for her
know,
because of
and
that.
I did too.
That's awesome.
And and just the audience laughs and
Because she's at a point
she
doesn't care,
and I love that.
and she doesn't have to care.
You will find there are few people in Hollywood as authentic as Linda Hamilton. You know.
So, if anything, the takeaway from Dark Fate shouldn't be about how to continue the franchise. It's what else can we cast Linda Hamilton
Let's
in?
get Linda Hamilton in more movies, because I mean,
I am all for that.
she's great. I mean, and I think the cast of this was great too. I mean, I thought what is the Mackenzie
Davis.
Mackenzie Davis. I thought she was a very great protector. I mean, I thought it was very convincing.
She had that personal connection to it as well.
Yeah, and I like that story a little
Which
bit.
again we had with Kyle Reese. That's why that was one of the things I liked, was that it was a human protector. There was more we could do with that.
And there was a personal connection, and it's revealed later.
You know, because
and I thought
before
that
it was always Terminators, or it was Jai Courtney again with the emotional range of a robot.
Right, which he thought he was playing a different role, right?
He thought he was actually Jai Courtney actually believes he's a robot in real life.
Yeah, I got nothing against Jack Courtney. But the point is,
Stop making bad movies.
The point is that I just did not think it added anything to the franchise, and maybe somebody could come up with an idea that makes sense, but I think just Judgment Day happens. Judgment Day happens. Like, there's not really, like, it's kind of like that scene from Bowfinger where Steve Martin is explaining the movie, and it's like, it's not that hard. He runs towards the aliens, he runs away from the aliens. You know,
I mean, at this point, I feel like the only way to continue, you have to go the Salvation route, but do it better.
Yeah, I guess,
You have to set it in the future.
I don't care anymore.
But audiences didn't like that.
Yeah, and we've seen that in The Matrix, the idea of robots taking over, and it's not done.
And now that's getting another sequel.
Yeah, and I don't care about that either.
I don't know how to. Yeah,
I don't, because we've had enough of that, and I think it was an interesting idea at the time, but it just wasn't that interesting. And it's like, okay, so Skynet's gone, great, that's awesome, but like there's
a new one.
There's a new one. It's Legion, and I by the way, I did like that all the biblical references continued. You know, Grace, Legion, you know, like JC, John Connor. Like, there's a lot of little.
Really.
I know. Yeah.
Skynet's in the Bible too. Is that what you're telling
I'm
me?
not saying that.
The Book of Skynet.
No.
It's a really interesting read.
I'm just saying
It was left out of the Council of Nicaea for all the weird sci-fi stuff.
I'm just saying that they continued kind of those little allusions, which
Yes.
I appreciated. But I just didn't like. To me, the stakes weren't that interesting. Like, and I think also has to do with the villain's not that interesting. You know,
because you can't top Robert Patrick.
Well, it's that, and I think they were legitimately scary villain. I think
he went all out. Cameron had him study the behavior and movements of a shark.
Yeah.
So when he's like circling a crowd, he's acting like a predator. You know, there was. You're never gonna top his level.
I think it's part of that, and
that face.
And I think the special effects felt more realistic back then. Like, you really felt, and to be fair, I felt like there were more practical effects in this one, maybe just not enough.
There were definitely more practical effects than there had been in Salvation or Genesis.
Yeah, for sure.
But there were still enough pure CGI that it looked like CGI. And you have to remember, back then, they could only use CGI where they absolutely had to.
Yeah.
And there were far fewer CGI shots. Yeah. So you had your team of people working on fewer shots, whereas it's the reason why today in so many blockbusters the CGI is terrible, because they have thousands and thousands of shots to do.
And it's cheaper to do that way now. And I like, one thing I really hate, and this is the Terminator movies after T2 and any kind of action movies, like when they slam somebody into the wall and the wall like smashes in, or the floor, it always looks so fake. Like it just doesn't look real. So I guess for that, like, it didn't feel like the stakes were that high. I wasn't that interested in the stakes. I think that Sarah Connor didn't quite get the arc that I wanted. I really did like the for John thing. I did like that. And I felt that was, I felt a little misty-eyed when the Terminator dies in it, even though we know he's going to die, because he always dies. I think except for Genesis, he doesn't die.
But again, that was just a pale comparison to Judgment Day's ending.
I agree with that. I agree. So, like I said, there's moments that kind of reminded me of Judgment Day. I felt was closer to that, but it just wasn't the same. And I would have liked for Sarah, so going back to the whole John Connor thing in the beginning, that should have really just driven her over the edge, and I would have liked to have seen some kind of arc out of her other than her just getting over hating Arnold's character.
Because we went through that already in Judgment Day.
And in a better way. Like, in Judgment Day, like, when you see Arnold show up for the first time,
she's terrifying.
She, like, that fear. I think the performance, I think the cinematography, the slow motion of that, I mean, it is just overwhelmingly powerful. And it was so unique back then. You never saw that
before. Go from that to just... No, I'm not accepting a drink from you.
Yeah, which was kind of like funny, but I'm like, well, she got over that fast.
That's what
Why? So he said his mission was complete. Was there an implication in this? This is more a practical question. Was there an implication that the timeline took time for the ripple effect to happen, for him to like be deactivated? Because I think if anything, what this movie shows is, one of the more interesting parts of this movie is that when you change the future, it doesn't necessarily change the past.
Because the effects are already... Here's what I think.
That's the Avengers Endgame
I think
theory.
That you are already putting more thought into it than the filmmakers did.
Yeah.
Is what But I'll tell you this. One other random side thought. Huge missed opportunity to tie it back to Judgment Day. When Sarah says that she knows that... I think it was a colonel or a general in the Air Force.
Yeah.
I looked at... Because I was looking for this. I looked at his name. Yeah. He was African American, and I thought it's gonna say Dyson, and that's his son.
Yeah.
Didn't say Dyson.
Yeah.
Huge missed opportunity. Even that, it could have been subtle to just know. Oh, well, that's Dyson's son.
I think they tried to go back into the whole Dyson thing in Genesis. It didn't work. So, but I think that would have been interesting for sure.
I think that would have been a nice touch.
Tie it back in. I would have liked to have seen more ties to Terminator 2. And it was clear that they're trying to do, I think with like Jurassic World and Star Wars Force Awakens, they are trying to do, okay, well, here's the first one, and the first one is a remake of the original first one, but then the sequels are going to get a little bit different. And I think they had more success with Jurassic World with that. We'll see how the third one turns out. But
you're more optimistic than I am.
But I think here it just didn't really work. And I think it's that there's just not much to the Terminator story. I think you told it.
You told between Terminator 1 and Judgment Day, you told a perfect cinematic story. It's not that long
of a story. And it would have been nice to kind of like be scared again. And I think about how like Rogue One made Darth Vader scary again.
That was awesome.
And that was a positive example of that. But I didn't really see that here. I didn't really see an attempt to do that. But anyway. So that's all I have to say on that. Yeah.
Franchise is probably dead. We'll see what happens if it lives on.
I do hope, look, there's a lot of really talented people that made this film, and I'm always coming from the filmmaker perspective. And I hope that they, I hope that we see more of them in other things. I just want original stories.
That's what I mean. Is when when a movie like this fails, I know there were a lot of talented people that'll make it. I want them to get jobs on better movies.
Yeah.
That's what I want for them.
You know what? I don't know if the audience wants that.
And they're done.
But maybe the box office results from this, maybe that will change minds.
We'll see.
So I don't know. I do think that the soft reboot's a phase. I think it's a trend.
I hope it ends soon.
I don't think it can go on forever.
Nostalgia only runs so long when eventually people start getting nostalgic for the time you were nostalgic, and there's nothing original from that time to be nostalgic about.
I hear that.
And that's we're getting close to that. Because we're just now starting to get nostalgic for like the 90s and the early 2000s, and we're going to soon hit nostalgia for a time when...
Look, I'm not going to lie. Before I came over to do this podcast, I was watching a YouTube video about like sounds that only kids from the 90s and 2000s will remember. And I just listened, and I was like, oh, that feels really nice to think back.
So we're only 10 years away from being nostalgic for the age of the soft reboot.
We're gonna hey, remember the reboots? Remember the soft reboot?
So
remember Sarah Connor again?
Yeah, I think that's all there is to say.
That's all there is to say to it. So that's it for Philly Film Brothers this week. Thanks for tuning in. Please check us out at dorkdaily.com. Please check us out at dorkdaily.com. Check out the links below. And please subscribe and click the notification bell. We'll see you next time.